I have a little. Yeah, I feel like my suit is such that I don't have to be that big. The suit is very imposing. I have a big enough frame right now that it makes the suit work. For shirtless scenes and that kind of thing. Vanity sake, I could lean out. I could probably drop about 5 pounds, 10 pounds maybe. And so lifting heavy could help with that. Also just dialing in my diet a little bit more and then doing more burst training.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe here with Doug Larson and Dr. Andy Galpin. And we have traveled up to, where are we at? Venice, California. And we're hanging out at the Human Garage again. We like it here.
We do.
It's nice.
Gary's a man. He loves having us up.
Yeah, earlier today we got to go and train at Deuce Gym, which is also here. Always a pleasure to be over there.
Absolutely. Thank you to Logan for housing us today.
Absolutely.
He's always so open to having us come by and train.
Yeah.
Very cool dude.
Yeah, it's actually really cool that Andy, Doug, and I are still training together because
it is cool.
We met like a decade ago. So it's been about that long. And
we started. I've known Andy for a long time, but if you're a new listener and you don't really know our background, like we started on the University of Memphis weightlifting team all together back in like 2006, and we're still just like back then. We love talking about training, and now we're talking about training, just doing it on microphones.
That's right. So today we have Brandon Routh. He's an actor on Legends of Tomorrow. You're the Atom.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're also known really well for playing Superman.
That's right.
In Superman Returns back in that's about 10 years ago.
A long time ago now. Yeah, I'm the old Superman now.
The old Superman.
I'm the old guy.
Does that feel? I mean, that's actually pretty interesting. You have like different Supermans for different eras and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're all passing the torch forward. And
are you buddies with the new guy?
I've met Henry very, very briefly in passing during a press event one time, but I haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk to him.
Yeah.
He's a busy dude.
We should have you guys fight.
I was just going to say that.
I think he's currently getting a lot more workout time than I am.
Yeah.
I don't know how well I'd fare. But.
We had an awesome workout this morning.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to be trained by Ryan, super knowledgeable.
Right.
It's really cool being trained by a guy who works here at the Human Garage, and then also handling strength and conditioning. That's rare to find that.
Yeah, I had been coming to Human Garage for a year before I really started working out, or maybe a little bit longer than that before I started working out with Ryan and doing the biomechanical side of things here. I had a trainer named Ray Campisi. I'll mention Ray. He was a wonderful person. He passed away. Bring the show at the beginning to
good start.
But
sorry to hear that.
And so naturally, it was kind of a natural progression to coming into here, and all the things that I learned from him, I've brought into here and kind of keep him with me.
Nice.
And I've been happy to then step into a different type of training, putting even more of body and core integrity, structural integrity at the forefront of the training.
Yeah. So some of the things we talked about before, it sounds like to me the way you were training. When you prepared for Superman, which was in 2006, I imagine you were filming.
2005,
filming before that. Were you in really good shape before that, or was that a role you had to really train hard for?
I really trained hard for that role. So I started training in 2004. We filmed in 2005, and the movie came out in 2006. So it was November of 2004, and I started working out. And I had my trainer's name was Gudni Gunnarsson. He's an Icelandic gentleman who's amazing and a dear friend of mine. And we started doing something called rope yoga, which is something he developed, which is a kind of mix of Pilates and yoga. He developed his own. It's called a crafter machine. It's a simple pulley system. You lie on your back for most of it. It's very core driven, and a way to strengthen the core and the hamstrings to take the legs and the quads out of it so that you can lengthen your back. Anyway, we did a lot of that, and that was a leaning out process that I worked on with him. when I moved to Australia to film the movie for about a year, Sydney, Australia, transitioned to a different trainer.
So are you choosing your own trainer throughout this whole thing, or they have like a list?
Producer Gilbert Adler, had been working out with Goodney, and Goodney's not just a trainer; he's a life coach. Is the easy way of saying it.
Right.
He was kind of like my first guru, if you will, as far as opening up my viewpoint to a bigger view of the world and my
fields.
body. Yeah, well, just my body and taking responsibility for thoughts and how that affects my body and how I'm seeing the world.
And
my
you were
speech.
about, what, 24, 20?
I was 24, yeah.
And you mentioned speech.
Speech, yeah. Speaking with integrity and can versus will, or try versus I will.
Right.
Couldn't or can't, could versus would, even.
Right.
All these kind of different ways.
Our verbs, right.
To have intentional speech, essentially.
Right.
And he was using the body as a way to reflect where we're holding physically, where we're kind of stuck, and using that as a tool to then have a dialogue about, oh, your shoulder's very tight with this, and it's consistently tight during this movement. Maybe there's something. What does that? And certain emotional affectations or traumas can be held in certain parts of the body. So this opens a dialogue to that, if the person is willing and open to discuss it.
Yeah.
And that was my first experience with that type of thinking, which helped me with Superman, because then that was kind of the idea from our producer, was to help me in more in that heady space of having as much power as I can, and it really helped me step into that. Step into the character and start to think more worldly, with more awareness, in a bigger way about.
Yeah.
Was playing that character where you had to hold a lot of power. That it sounds like it transformed you in a way.
Yes and no. So I'm kind of working through all this stuff now.
You have like emotional trauma from the role?
Yes, in a way. So I had to do a lot of exploration, what it's like to be the most powerful being in the world,
right.
And live in that space to a degree, through using different various acting techniques and explorations and meditations. Body work, I did Alexander technique. Terry Notary, who's a well-known movement coach. He's worked on a lot of the Planet of the Apes movies and has done a lot of. He's like amazing. He used to be a Cirque du Soleil performer. Getting better body control, and with this whole body movement experience of trampoline and all this work to have my body flow and move and be open and expressive. And then the dreaming and thinking about questions about the being a spiritual guide like inspirational person like Superman. Anyway, that kind of stuff. So I did all that work and worked to bring that to the character. And then I was also hesitant to have that in my personal life, because my ego and all other things were telling me, well, I don't want people to think that I really think that I'm Superman, and walk around like this self-righteous a-hole.
Right. Is that who Superman is?
Was that? No, he's not, but definitely not. Right. But as Brandon trying to live out that experience, I had a lot of self-judgments. My inner critic was very strong about that. So I kind of dampened myself a little bit and was lesser than for some time, I think. And it's been kind of acknowledging that and understanding that through many different, modalities of healing and learning about myself. I'm coming back to accept my own personal power. Because I think, I tell everybody, Superman is there for us to aspire to be like Superman. We all have that ability. I mean, we might be fly and have, heat vision, but I think we can absolutely attain that awareness, that compassion, and that worldliness and care for everyone in the world, if we just allow ourselves and follow the path.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are the expectations imposed on you as far as what you need to look like physically? Do they come and say, okay, we're recording on this date, you got to gain 20 pounds of muscle, you got to lose 10 pounds of fat, you have to, build your upper body up, or you need bigger arms? Do they come and tell you what you have to look like?
There was there was a standard. They essentially built a suit that had padding in it, right? The way they did the suit 10 years ago, it was like a muscle suit, and then the blue suit came over it. So I needed to get bigger in a way and lean out, but I didn't have then. But there was a point actually where I couldn't get bigger because I was too big for the suit.
You're a fairly big guy. You're what, 6'2"?
I'm 6'2". I was 6'2" and 3/4 at the time. I'm now 6'3.5". Thanks to the human garage.
Right.
Nice.
And you're what? When you went from 200 to 225, something
I was
like that?
I was like 208 when I started training. I dropped down to 196, and then I filmed the movie at about 225 most of the time.
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
My body had never lifted heavy. I'd been in athletics and all kinds of stuff and been in the weight room, but never like had anybody teach me and really lift heavy and feed myself the right way. So I put on, 20 pounds of muscle.
But the first time you do that, it comes on easy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I was
Especially
24.
your size.
And I was 24.
Yeah,
so
24.
Totally.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. 6'3", 24 years old. That's a...
So it was great.
Yeah.
And so then I had to maintain that, and I had my own challenges with that, the pressure of that whole experience, and just Hollywood is. I could talk for hours about that. But yeah, there was a lot of pressure to do that. Sometimes it wasn't in your face as much as I would have liked them to be like, hey, you need to lose weight. It was kind of like, oh, so how's your, what have you been eating lately? And I think I would have liked a little more directness, because I was like, oh, I came from Iowa. I was like, oh, unless somebody says something to me, like everything's all good. I was very naive, and not understanding a lot of the clues that probably other people would have gotten.
Was someone helping you with your nutrition back then? Did you have someone making meals for you?
No. So their trainer, he'd gotten me on the new trainer that had gotten me on like a meal plan of prepared meals, but I was also more picky about eating. So then I didn't, it wasn't what should have happened. And if I had more power, this is my first big movie, and would have understood what I needed and spoken out about what I needed. I would say, I need a chef, please, to be cooking every meal for me, so that I don't fall off the wagon, and I don't, I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. So what I think I need to be doing, because I had the support from a nutritionist who was in Los Angeles, like feeding supplements and protein and all the stuff for my workouts, but not somebody guiding me on a daily basis and helping me with the food aspect, which I know now is about 90% of it. I mean, if you're building mass, the workout's a bigger thing, but for losing weight, for me, I feel like it's 90% of it is what you're eating, not what you're doing physically.
So I want to go back a little bit. You were introduced to new movement practices to open up your body for that role. What did that look like?
Well, something called Alexander technique, which is a fairly common stage actor and actor's technique. And I don't remember so much of it now, but it's sitting in a chair. It's thinking of a string held to your head, floating and pulling you up. So it's jaw back, spine alignment, and all kinds of things, and then moving fluidly, moving with intention. So every step is forward with intention. And I don't do it on a normal basis, but now I feel it. It's like it's a flowing. And Terry would just do this. He would have me do this thing with moving my hand. And it's instead of just like putting my hand up, it's there's resistance in there can be resistance in every movement. It's not real resistance, but it's intentional movement, and it's a slight resistance, which is how dancers move and they flow. It all comes from the core, right?
It's not about getting from point A to point B. It's about getting there with that a little bit of tension.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but
it's smooth.
All of your movements come from the core, then there's intentional movement to it all, so it flows. And
if you're just listening and you're not watching at home, as he's explaining this, he's moving his hand, and sometimes you move it looks herky or jerky or forced, but then when you move it like that, I'm like mesmerized. I'm like, ooh, that's so pretty.
Because I mean, if I just think as Superman, I didn't want to just like clunkily walk down.
He's gonna hypnotize us.
Right, exactly.
I had to learn.
I'm gonna be at home like
I'm holding my shorts up right now, like these.
Well, in the strength conditioning world, kind of what you're referring to is we call that moving from core to periphery.
Okay.
Right, where that's a common principle of movement, that if you're doing it correctly, you're moving core to periphery. Like if I'm swinging a golf club, I don't just swing my arms. Like I initiate with the hips, and then that's when the swing starts, not when I just start moving my arms, etc.
Everything is connected, and the more we can keep that in our consciousness, the more effortlessly we move. It feels like more work when you're learning or you're training, and then it becomes second nature. But we've learned, inaccurate ways of moving because of we've gotten injured. We rolled our ankle, and then we started moving that way, and we compensate and we move not in a physically sound way. So the walking was a huge thing. It just walked and walked and walked and walking with intention instead of clunking away. It was moving with chest open, core in line, and flowing. If you watch the movie, hopefully you can see that I can see that work that I did versus my normal walk. Just as Brandon was, there was a lot of work with Superman and trampoline work and floating in that space. We used my swimming background for all the flying stuff. Because I felt it was going to be a lot like swimming, flip turns and how I moved and how I, did strokes would be how I was going to fly. So we did a lot of pool work and we built basically a book of moves, so Terry could call something out. And I'd fly. That's how I'd fly anyway.
So that fluid movement work that you were doing, the Alexander technique, as you mentioned, is that something that they were specifically asking you to do because there's a certain amount of grace that is expected for someone who's playing a character that has the mystique of someone who's the most powerful being on Earth, or is that like something that most actors would normally go through to play
I think
any role?
This is specific for Superman. I mean, actors would do Alexander technique to move and flow. It's an acting technique that a lot of stage actors use. I don't know if many film and television do it, but it wasn't something that I was exposed to prior to doing Superman. And it was Terry who was hired to be the movement and to help with that. It was his thought to go through this process because he wanted it. His feeling about Superman, as he was focused on the movement, was to make him as flowing. If he's graceful, if he's the most powerful being on Earth, he's going to float. It doesn't take effort. Things shouldn't take that much effort. Certainly walking and taking off even shouldn't take effort. Now, you have to make a little bit of a modification to that because you also have to show the movement on camera. So if you just lift off, it's not as exciting. So there's a balance of having some explosiveness, even though in my head I'm going I don't have to do that. I just float away.
Right.
But that's not exciting on camera. So.
Fair enough.
It's moderating what the work that we do and then being flexible and open to speak to have the director's vision and everyone else, express themselves.
So you were saying that that was 10 years ago now. It was the first time you'd really lifted any appreciable heavy weights to put on 20 pounds. Yeah. And that was, like I just said, 10 years ago. Now you're working with our friends here at the Human Garage. These guys are leading edge. They're very innovative. They're very intelligent. And what they're doing is very modern. They're pushing boundaries, so to speak. So now with the training that you are doing, how does that compare to what you were doing? And how do you think about movement now that you're doing something that is much more modern?
So, very good question. The movement was focused in how Superman moved, but not always in with how I was lifting. Focus on body alignment and where my hips were and where my shoulders were, where my chest was open, was not the focus in certain aspects of the training when I switched trainers. It was more focused on lifting weights, getting big, and losing weight.
What did that look like, though? Was it a lot of barbell work then?
It was barbell, dumbbell. We did a lot of...
it's like bodybuilder type...
Machines.
Machines. I mean, we did bench press. We did a lot of dumbbell flies and press, dips, pull-ups, traditional stuff. There's a video, if you search YouTube, that's a little bit like 2-minute thing of me working out 10 years ago.
Yeah, and that's all good stuff for the record.
Yeah, sure. Especially if that's the goal.
Yeah, and it was beating. I had to break the muscle open to build the mass. So it was heavy weights, and it was intense. And that was basically pretty much 5 days a week. Sometimes I was up at 4 a.m. running through the park for my warm-up because I had to then go to work. So I was working out for an hour and a half and then go shooting for 14 hours and then getting the sleep that I could and doing it again. But I had two months to lift heavy without the filming part. And then it went into maintenance. So the difference now is I've built that muscle mass, right? And so I have good muscle memory. So I've maintained a decent affair. I'm about 210 right now. So there's 15 pounds more of mass that I have had on my body before, which would be interesting to do an exercise to see how long it would take me to put that muscle mass back on at 37. But now I'm focused on the health of my body, the fluid movements, keeping everything in alignment and doing a lot more body weight stuff. We use weights when I'm working out with Ryan, but it's kettlebell and a lot of just, body-focused integrity and core-based integrity, and I get a heck of a workout without having to, beat my body up necessarily with heavy weights. And
When you say having that integrity, what does that mean? I think most people, if we just leave that out there, I think people, there's a lot of room for assumption.
So I started with Ryan. I was like, when do we start lifting? So I can, because that's what I was used to.
Get yoked.
Traditional, yeah. Because that was my way into getting lean and doing all kinds of things. And we spent. He's like, "Oh, we'll get to it."
He tricked you.
He tricked me.
Liar. One thing I tell my students when you first start training athletes or clients: lie.
That principle goes for when you meet anybody, especially
women.
Women.
Yes. That's how I got Natasha.
So we spent essentially a month and a half. I was getting 2 sessions a week, maybe 3 sessions, mostly 2 a week, working on just my squat, the mechanics of my squat, because of various injuries in my life, my squat movement was not in line, not the way you would want it to be if I was completely healthy. Hips moving back, all core engaged, all kinds of things. So it took several weeks and different exercises to build that integrity of having the movement be such that I wasn't putting myself in a position where I was going to get injured. So we worked kind of like baby steps to reteach my body and rewire my system and my nervous system to do it the right way, so that I can increase weights, and then I could do things like climbing the rope, which is not a squat, obviously, but it's building that core integrity.
Yeah.
That I can jump into that, not hurt myself, and actually surprise myself that I made it to the top of the rope. I don't know if I ever climbed a rope that high.
Right, before you jumped on the rope, you were like, there was question in your mind.
My brain was, I was nervous about it.
Oh, it wasn't question. It was clear he wasn't going to make it up there. He was like, I'm not making enough that thing.
And I probably said it, but my body...
I was trying to be nice, Andy.
Yeah,
Jesus.
But he said he wants more direct. That's what I'm giving.
Thank you. You're right. So then I grabbed the rope, and my body responded because I built that integrity. So then I wasn't thinking about it. My body, like all the firing mechanisms were in line. So the switches were on, so that my body wasn't second guessing it. It was integrity, and it just did what I asked it to do. Whereas, 3 months ago, before I started with Ryan, I don't think I've been able to do that.
And what we're talking about is athleticism. And I think a lot of people who have challenges with coordinated efforts, a lot of times, is not so much maybe a lack of coordination as their body's just not connected. And once it's connected and you've done all these things that you've done with Ryan, a new skill is a lot easier to pick up.
Yes, we want to rush to get big, to lose weight, to get the beach body or whatever. And you can do that, like people do it, like everybody's mostly doing that. But at what cost? Right. You're tearing muscles. You're creating scar tissue in certain areas. You're degenerating your hip by getting damaging your cartilage and joints. And how much like the issues that I have are from poor movement. I was like, I'm athletic. I play soccer. I swim. I do all kinds of stuff. I've been working out, lifting heavy weights for 10 years. I know how to do this. But I've injured myself along the way because of that. So now I'm reteaching myself and taking the time and the care for myself to do that. And I'm having a great time with it, and I'm feeling better about it, getting good results.
Yeah.
Yeah. This sounds very similar to our friend Summer, who works with Ida Portal. She, in the CrossFit world, doing muscle ups is like a skill that a lot of people aspire to do. It's a relatively low level gymnastics skill, but for the average person, it's a fairly difficult thing to pull off. So you sound like you're familiar with what a muscle up is.
I don't know that I can do one, but I'm familiar with what it is.
Yeah. Seen it before.
Yeah. And so so this person, she'd never done one before, and she'd always wanted to do it. And so she's working with Ida Portal, who's a very well known gymnastics oriented person who is definitely qualified to teach her how to do a muscle up correctly. And she put together all the component parts of it and did all the prep work correctly and had all the adequate mobility ahead of time. And then when she went to go do it her first time, she was just like, boop, boop, and just popped up and was like, oh, that's how you do it. And then she went and told people, like, I did a muscle up on my first try, and they were like, no way. And she was like, yeah, like I did all this prep work, and it just happened because I did it the way it's supposed to be done. As opposed to most people, they just try over and over and over and over to try to get it, and they keep missing it because they don't have the proper foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still playing a super human superhero right now.
Yeah,
right?
superhero.
Something like that. So do you feel like? Sorry.
Well, I'm not
super something.
Well, what? He's just a superhero now.
This guy's super.
We didn't give him Andy his qualia today.
Sorry. So do you feel like the training you're doing now, which is it's core based and this integrity stuff you're doing, it's not as much heavyweight, hardly any heavyweight stuff at all. Is that still enough to keep you physically looking like you need to look to play a superhero, or are you not concerned with that at all?
Yes, it's keeping me. I have.
So you're still maintaining enough muscle.
I have a little. Yeah, I feel like my suit is such that I don't have to be that big. The suit is very imposing. I have a big enough frame right now that it makes the suit work. Yeah. For shirtless scenes and that kind of thing. Vanity sake, I could lean out. I could probably drop about 5 pounds, 10 pounds maybe. And so lifting heavy could help with that. Also just dialing in my diet a little bit more and then doing more burst training. I've been doing a lot of learning with Ryan and retraining my body, burning calories, but not doing as much burst training, which is what I've gotten into and just ditched the whole long cardio thing.
Talk about just like high intervals, high intervals.
Yeah, raising the heart rate, lower, taking a rest and then doing it again.
Gotcha.
And so doing that mixed with diet stuff, I could shed what I need to shed. But I don't feel like I'm able to keep my body in pretty much exactly where I want it to be without having to lift heavy and to have sore muscles all the time like I used to.
Right.
Yeah. Let's take a break real quick. I want to dig into how your nutrition has changed over time.
Yeah.
I know that probably for all of us, the difference between the 20s and 30s.
Oh, boy.
A little bit different.
A lot different.
All right, we're back with Brendan Routh, and we do want to dig in a little bit of nutrition as well, because you've actually gotten into some interesting things lately that it's much different than what you were doing before.
Yeah.
And so, question: when you were doing the Superman role, how did you prepare for that role versus how you're doing now?
Well, Superman was again back in 2004, and the first thing we did was to kind of lean out. Drop a little bit of baby weight that I still had, I think, which maybe I still have a little somewhere, actually.
It's from your baby, though.
Yeah, right. This is my son. My son's. So it was lean meats. It was veggies for that phase. And then when we started bulking up, it was whey protein. Designs for Health had a protein powder I was using back in the day. Glutamine, ribose, carnitine, BCAAs, AAs. But
the standard.
The standard, yeah.
It's pretty standard.
And then focus on, egg whites and chicken in the morning and avocado and greens and that kind of traditional lean meats, low fat.
Yeah.
High on the on the veggies.
You had a hard time sticking with it. It sounded like.
Yeah, because I wasn't satiated, and also.
Were you living in LA at the time?
I was in
You're in Australia though.
Australia
right?
most of the time. So new food.
24 years old, new country.
Yes. A lot of stress. So the weekends weren't great for me. The weekends is where I definitely cheated more than I should have. Because I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the understanding and the knowledge that I have now.
It probably didn't sound as important to you then as you now know it is.
The nutrition?
Yeah.
I definitely didn't know as much about nutrition. I didn't intellectually. I didn't have that knowledge base. I was using other people's information and knowledge for how to do that, and it worked for the bulk up. It definitely. I mean, I gained a lot of mass. I kind of destroyed my stomach a little bit, and my gut a little bit because of the massive protein that I was eating, and which is not always good for the liver and all kinds of other functions in the body. And then I got to a point where it was like a stalemate. Like I looked great, but I was retaining a little bit of stomach weight that kind of never really went away during the filming process, as much as I could have gotten. And that was, I can blame a lot of things on myself, take responsibility for that.
How long was filming though for that movie? Does that take you like 3?
We filmed for about 8-9 months.
And then what does it, just maybe like 1 minute, what does a work week look like when you're filming? Is that Monday through Friday? 9 to 5? Like what's that?
Monday through Friday, 12 to 14-hour days, maybe a couple 15-hour days, depending on. The worst part, the most challenging part for me was when I was doing the flying stuff. So this was a second unit shoot. So first unit was shooting acting stuff, essentially, and second unit was shooting flying on a green screen for 2 months straight. I pretty much did that.
You pretended to fly for 2 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dang, there's that many flying scenes?
They didn't, and they didn't always use as
course
much as
they
we
don't.
shot.
Yeah.
Fuck. Too much was CGI in my mind, but so we did.
So you're trying to eat well while doing all that.
Trying to eat well.
Well, the flying in the movie was
Literally
crazy.
getting 5-6 hours of sleep because I had to train at least 3 days a week to maintain.
Right.
And that was early in the morning, and then going to do the workout. Meantime, the process of flying is I put on a harness. You have to tighten everything down so you don't want to injure anything, and you have to. So my whole body's under compression from that. My legs are under compression, core and everything. And then I'm trying to do that. Pull on this basically rubber band suit, which is the muscle suit. Then I pull on the blue over it. So every time I did this, I'm pulling because it was doing this. It was dragging. So the blue suit was dragging.
You didn't even need to lift
basically
weights.
like a hose, like a woman's hose. Like that, doing this every time. So I still working stuff here at the Human Garage, working some structural knots and things that have not released yet from the back from making this movement.
From doing so many upright road
And then
sort of thing.
Yeah, and then I'd have to change in and out of the suit and the harnesses because different ways of flying require different harnesses and different pick points, which is where they tie the wires to. So just even doing that getting in and out of the suit was a workout.
Oh, God, okay. So, all right, back to your question of where were you talking about it destroyed your gut, you were saying, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you mean by what do you feel like destroyed your gut? Was the too much protein?
I think it was too much. Protein. Also, just the stress, adrenal fatigue and all kinds of other things. Lack of sleep and overwork, create a lot of stuff that dysbiosis and other things that weren't fantastic. I developed some food intolerances during the process. I might have had some going in, but some developed because of that.
So how do you do it now? What's your approach?
My approach, now I don't eat lean meat very often. About 4 years ago, a friend introduced me to the Bulletproof coffee, and then I went down the rabbit hole of learning about the qualities of good fats and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
cleaner eating.
The very first thing I ever heard you say, actually, right before we met, because we met here at the Human Garage. You were sitting over there on this couch, just talking to somebody, and I was like standing there talking to Gary, and I could overhear you in the background talking about like essential fatty acids and which ones are in which things and like how they act in your body. And I was just like overhearing like, who's this guy talking about like all these like nutrition concepts? And Gary, I was like, oh yeah, and then he started talking about you.
Yeah. I've become, I became very passionate about it. I think one of the reasons was because at this similar time, my son was turning a year old and he was going to start eating solid foods. So I wanted to understand what I was going to be feeding him and do right by him. So I was reading all this information about nutrition, not only for myself, but for him. And that really opened my mind up to understanding how much food impacts us and how much the quality of food impacts our bodies, and then on a bigger scale, the world. So I became very focused on high quality, clean, powerful nutrients, and had profound effects for me. I basically experimented with myself for a good couple weeks and months, and my wife, and did some blood testing and these kind of things to make sure that increasing higher fat wasn't damaging me. When we'd done enough of that, and my wife could see the results not only on the test, but also my ability to communicate and have more emotional capacity and all kinds of other really awesome things that happened. We started feeding my son, not Bulletproof coffee, but
it's in the bottle.
but cut out largely.
Dave would be so happy.
Yeah, cut out gluten and many grains and put more fat in his diet, more than we maybe would have done before.
I just had this flash of an image of the new book. It's like Bulletproof Coffee for Infants.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I remember being in a similar boat where like 10, 12 years ago. In fact, when me and Andy were roommates, like I remember making like pasta and chicken like every day.
Yeah.
All the time. Like playing college football, just eating pasta and chicken. Like it's cheap. And like I think I play football. Like I need a lot of carbs. I need a lot of protein. I just need a lot of just meat and energy, so to speak. And now I've swung pretty hard the other way as well. A lot of us have. Like, we're more like in the paleo world, where we're eating, a lot of healthy essential fatty acids, a lot of veggies, still a bunch of protein, and then carbs are more kind of like as needed, depending on your training schedule and what have you. It's more activity based than anything, but fats are kind of widely accepted now in pop culture as being a good thing, as long as they're the right types.
Exactly. I just have had so many positives come from switching away around my eating. Taking control and having that education, understanding about what I was eating was an important aspect, because then I was actively fighting for myself and taking responsibility for the food I was eating. It's so easy to just go, I'm going to go stop in McDonald's or wherever and just eat this and not take the moment to go, oh wait, what I'm eating really affects me, and everything I put in my mouth is a choice. And that affects how I feel. So when I didn't realize at the time, but that's what was happening. And now with my busy schedule, and that I travel all of the time, and I'm surrounded by junk food on set a lot of the time, that I have to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. And so I have all the snacks that I can have. I don't eat the food that everybody else. I'll pass and I won't eat on the plane. I don't want the food that's I paid for or somebody paid for me if I'm in first class, because it's not going to help me. I'll have, fat fudge or a bulletproof protein bar or something else that I've brought. And wait till later to eat, because also I can do that because my brain isn't going crazy. I don't have hangry feelings. Insulin is not controlling my brain. I am in control, and my sugar cravings are largely gone.
So the nutrition you just talked about, the movement stuff you talked about earlier, those are all fairly accepted in the CrossFit and the weightlifting space and stuff right now. But has that really been embraced in the acting world in Hollywood, or do your coworkers look at you like you're crazy still?
No. I've converted several.
Everyone in Hollywood's got weird shit going on anyway, right?
Like everybody everywhere.
You're the least weird of what they're doing, right?
Everybody everywhere has weird stuff.
That's true.
Right.
I'm learning more and more that I'm not perfect.
What?
It was hard for me to understand that, accept that. I am not a perfect person.
Interesting.
I understand that more and more every day, and that makes me better, but not perfect.
Yeah.
Bulletproof Coffee is now on set. I've become friends with Dave Asprey and the company, and so they sponsor us, the show. And our lovely craft service makes it for us every morning. But so that's been great. And so, yes, I've converted some people. Katie Lotz, who plays White Canary, who actually introduced me to the Human Garage, but I introduced her to Bulletproof Coffee.
Okay.
So you're even
pretty much every day. Pretty much every day. And some other castmates, will partake from time to time. Vancouver's a very healthy city by and large, and so there are a lot of crew members who they work out they do like a CrossFit workout. The camera crew does during the lunch break.
That's cool.
They break out the kettlebells and the ropes and out of the trucks, and they're doing their workout. And they some of those guys do the Bulletproof Coffee, and so yes, people are accepting it, and and some of the other people in my show's universe are intrigued in it. But it's a weird shift, right? You have to really take the plunge, because people will try something like Bulletproof Coffee once, but if they don't have the knowledge, I think it's hard to change those things, because food is so ingrained, it's comfort. It's like, oh no, it's just this. I'm gonna have this, and it's a challenging thing to change, because you have to take responsibility then for all the food you've eaten kind of before, and food is just a hard thing to change for people.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear you say this, because it sounds like you're in an environment, and this is one of the things that I get a little bit of resistance from, is I'll be posting, constantly on my Instagram stories, like, oh, that's what I'm eating right now. And people are like, well, you live a fairly unrealistic life. And because the truth of the matter is I've built the structure of my life to where I don't have to make a lot of good decisions. They're already made for me, right? Because I've designed my lifestyle to have really great stuff around me and not any bad stuff.
But you did that.
I did that.
You made the baby step to do that. It didn't just happen.
No doubt about it. And a lot of people, that's hard to get across.
Yeah.
And I'm an entrepreneur, so I do create I think I have a little more freedom than someone has a 9-to-5 job. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about you're on set and there's the junk food right there. I don't wake up and go to work and have junk food in front of me. So I I am in a different spot. But you, on the other hand, you are being exposed at all time. So what is it that you always have the good choice with you as well. So and you're also fatigued. You're traveling a lot. You're working long hours, and I imagine people think, oh, Hollywood actor, he's got it so easy and good. And as we're talking to you now, we're saying, oh, wait, he works really long hours. You may have some time off here and there, but when you are working, it gets crazy. And when you're tired, that's when it's the hardest to make the right decision, right? So can you tell us more about like having that discipline to stick with it? Because I know you put Reese's Cups over here.
Yeah.
And then I've got to stick with my healthier option, and I've been working 16 hours straight. Sometimes like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to eat that.
Yeah. It's a very challenging thing. Like when you're towards the end of the night, if you had a long day, and if I haven't done the work to feed myself before I get too hungry, then it's an even harder choice. So sometimes it's going, oh, I'm not really hungry yet, but I know it's been this amount of time. And I have this much to do. Then I should eat something to bolster me, so that I don't fall out. Make the bad choice. It's challenging. I don't always get it right. I tell you, many nights I know a place that has great gluten-free pizza that after a long day shooting, I'll order and I'll eat. That sets me back a couple days in the workout, but also not because then the next day I'll then intermittent fast and I won't eat for 18 hours, and so then my brain is thinking, okay, so I'm burning some of that off that I ate, but I've created an environment. So we have Fat Fudge on set. We have bulletproof bars on set. I have bulletproof coffee on set. I can do that. I bring my own protein powder and give it to the craft service. And yes, I can have somebody make the shake for me. But if I was in a 9-to-5 job and I had a kitchen in my office, I would go and make the shake for myself. I work too much. We work 14, 15-hour days on set.
They're not paying you your time to make shakes.
Right.
Like it's a stupid business move.
We can go into all kinds of things about that. Yes.
Very stupid.
I definitely have a lot of my life is very different than many people.
Right.
That's no excuse to go, oh well, he's a Hollywood actor. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You do it in your own way. You take the baby steps. You take the steps. This didn't happen overnight for me. These were conscious choices, and I learned from each one of them in a way to create this plan for me. It was I took responsibility for what I was doing and what I wasn't doing, and made steps to make it workable for me. So I support a lot of stuff I buy myself. I did the work to get these things up here, to get these on set. It wasn't just somebody like said, "Oh, we're gonna have bulletproof coffee one day." It's like I made the negotiations.
Yeah.
I did that.
Right.
And so to support all for me.
Because by the same token, you have the power and the income and the ability to say, I want a bunch of shitty stuff there all the time.
Yeah.
So you have even more leverage than the average person to have way more access to crap that you don't need.
Sure.
So in either case, you still have to be the one in control making the decision to put the good stuff or the bad stuff in front of you.
Yeah.
So you have to take that out as an excuse because it's really taking your own responsibility away.
And anytime we're comparing ourselves to somebody to say why I can't do something, it's not helpful. Like I make more income than the standard person. Bulletproof products are some people would say are expensive. They are expensive. It's like more of an expensive cup of coffee than going to Starbucks or making just regular Folgers coffee yourself. But then you think about, okay, well, this is the only food I'm eating in the morning for me. It's the only breakfast I eat. So if my cup of coffee costs me $7 or $8, that's my breakfast. I'm not eating anything else.
Right.
And I get this much more work done.
Right.
And I don't eat all these other things, and I don't stop and get this food and spend all these other things. So you can calculate the cost in a different way, or you do baby steps. You do what you can do. If you can't buy bulletproof coffee beans, then you get the butter. You buy somebody else's coffee, and you do it the way you can. If you stop yourself before you start, you'll never get it done. Maybe you can't buy all organic, but you can still make better choices about the food that you are eating. What is capable? What choices are you capable of in your environment? And I think if you start to make those little choices, you find that you have more capacity and more belief in yourself that you can start doing other things. If you just go absolve all responsibility, say, well, I can't do that, I'll never get there, you'll never will. But you can't just jump You can't just go from never having done a squat to doing a squat without doing the steps in between, like we talked about before.
Definitely.
Or the muscle up.
Right.
You know?
What are your favorite products? Like, I mean, you're limited on time.
Yeah.
You're obviously eating food that's pre-made in some way, whether it's packaged or being delivered.
Right.
If I wanted to know what it is that you're eating and supplementing with.
Well, I bulletproof coffee every morning. I've said that about a billion times.
Do you make that with? Do you do grass-fed butter, MCT oil?
Yeah, it's usually Kerrygold. In the States, it's Kerrygold.
Yeah.
In Vancouver, they don't have Kerrygold. You can't get it, so it's a company called Rolling Meadows or Kiwi Gold. They have a great unsalted butter. I eat Brain Octane versus the XCT oil I use. I like the Mentalist beans that Bulletproof has now, but I do a lot more decaf for various reasons. I'm cutting caffeine out to a degree. Fat fudge is a staple a lot of the time. Bulletproof collagen bars. I can't remember the companies. I have a couple different 100% grass-fed jerky or beef sticks that I'll have on set, especially for traveling. What's the one that makes everything? They've got Texas. They're out of Texas. I'll think about it. I can't remember.
They make everything?
They make tons of different bars. They have a venison one that I like.
I'm having a hard time.
I feel like we were just at PaleoFX and we had so many of these bars that I can't.
There's so many now.
Epic.
Yeah.
Epic.
Epic.
Good
So
job.
So I have a lot of.
You got one.
I like the venison Epic and I travel with those bars.
Yeah.
I do various nuts. The peely nuts I've been enjoying.
The what nuts?
Peely nuts, Pili.
Are these the new ones that are supposed to be like the healthiest nuts on earth?
I think they say that they kind of are. They're very buttery.
I've never heard of them, and all of a sudden they popped up.
You can get them at Erewhon here. I met the gentleman who started the company, and he was cool. There's a Baru nut, which is also a really crazy one, which I found at Erewhon here in Venice, an awesome grocery store.
If you're in LA, hit Erewhon because. Yeah, the selection there is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's amazing. I do that. I mean, I have various. Use a lot of bulletproof supplements, but also I use Siltep, Natural Stacks, and On It, and a couple companies that I've used.
I like Siltep. I was actually just talking about going back on Silt. Like I use different nootropics, and I was talking about that because I noticed it when I came off my last. Nootropic, I wanted something for better memory retention, and I noticed that that product is really good for that.
That when I started using it and work in conjunction with work was huge for me. There was a little bit of fear that would well up doing scenes that I had a lot of dialogue in, of fear of going up on my line.
Yeah.
And when I started taking it, I noticed that little fear wasn't there and just flowed. I didn't have that hiccup of thought or worry that I wasn't going to remember the line. It was just there.
That's another thing. You have to perform pretty every day. If you go out and pound a bunch of beers and then show up the next day, that doesn't really work.
Yeah. And I don't. I mean, that was a long time. Been a while since I did that anyway. But when I started doing eating,
but you have to take care of yourself and notice.
You don't have to.
This
there are people who don't.
I couldn't imagine trying to show up to something and just feeling like shit regularly.
This is such better way to protect myself, and not protect myself, but to treat myself with care and be respectful of my body, I guess, in a way. And I can better than present myself, and it's just more have more gratitude and have a more joyous life more consistently. It's something I'm working on every day, but I definitely, when I'm fueled properly and I have the brain power to do it, it's much easier to have this conversation and talk here than if I didn't. I did have my Siltep this morning, and Alpha Brain is another one. I do both of those together,
So you're stacking, which is common. You
Alpha GPC,
choline,
and I do a lot of brain stuff depending on the day and the demands. I won't do it every day if I don't have intensive brain or communication stuff that I have to do. Then I'll lay low on that.
I notice the difference when I'm taking some of those things with my movement. It's like I'm much more connected with my body with certain nootropics. Not all, but some. I do.
I haven't.
Especially with Alpha GPC, seems to be really good.
That's cool. I'll have to pay more attention to that.
Yeah.
I haven't had that awareness.
Yeah.
What's not related to fitness or health? I'm so interested though. Like, how do you remember all your lines? Did you get like, okay, you go to bed at night, you get like an hour, and then you got to do the next day, or do you do like an hour and then shoot, and then an hour and then shoot? Like, how does that happen?
Well, we usually get our scripts at least a week in advance.
A week. So you get a week to remember all your lines.
Sometime, but we don't shoot all of the whole script in one day. So
you mean you don't shoot the whole show live one time?
Oh man,
that's not how it works. What?
It's a farce.
Okay, all right.
I mean, when I was on a soap opera, I did that, but that was before I knew anything about
Oh, I didn't even know about a soap opera.
Oh, yeah, way back when. That was
Oh, we got to pull that.
a long time ago. One Life to Live. So we'll, but we'll have a day where we'll shoot. We call it pages. We shoot pages. That's how we explain how big our day is going to be. We shoot between 7 to 9 pages of dialogue a day, or if you look at a script,
right.
that much. Sometimes it's action, and sometimes it's just wall-to-wall dialogue. And we have a big cast on our show. We have 7 or 8 series regulars. So sometimes we're standing around, in the Wave Rider, which is our time ship, and I'll just have a couple lines. A day, which is hard. Yeah, but it's also really hard to stay in it
for 12 hours.
For 12 hours, because I'm just like not doing anything.
You got to get bored.
Scenery.
Oh man.
Yeah. You don't want your porridge to be too hot or too cold. You want to be like right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Right.
Just right.
And then other days where it's just 2 actors in all day, and you have 4 big scenes, which generally is more exciting because then I'm doing my job. I'm
right.
able to inhabit the character fully and really give and share and get into a flow with the other actor. And so what I've done is when I have bigger dialogue days, this is actually a skill that my wife started doing or trick and I've started doing it now, is to record my dialogue in my audio app.
Yeah.
And then listen to it in the car. Like if I have a big day coming up, I'll do it a couple of days in advance. And on the way to work, I'll listen to it. And it just kind of settles in. And if I do that, I don't have to sit down and memorize. It just kind of is there then, in a fairly natural way.
Have you done any work with Jim Quick?
I've met Jim. No, we haven't done that. We're always like meeting in social situations and haven't gotten any of his skills.
Yeah. I've heard so many stories of him working with actors and them having just phenomenal results.
Yeah. I think because when I shifted to this way of eating, I didn't have issues with it anymore, and I don't have worries about it. So I've already, even though I don't know those tricks and those skills, I don't need them as much maybe because my brain is doing what it's supposed to be doing because I've cleared up other avenues.
And at home, if you don't know who Jim Quick is, that's his last name is spelled Kwik, and he is just awesome with cognition overall, speed reading, memory, just focus, all that stuff. And he has these courses and stuff you can take online. It's pretty cool.
Very cool stuff. He came and visited me on set one day too.
Yeah.
Got to check out the show.
And he's like a superheroes nerd. Like he loves comic books and all that stuff. So like he loves being able to like work with you guys.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we mentioned that being tired on set is a challenge. You're working really long days, et cetera. If you compare nutrition, training, and rest and recovery across the board, and you said like for 3 days you didn't eat very well, for 3 days you didn't really train at all or very well, and then for 3 days you barely slept at all. Like by far and away, not sleeping is going to be the one that really just makes you lose your mind and is going to be the most troubling. So given that out of those 3, the one that you're getting the least of is the one that debatably is the most important as far as your motivation, your cognition, your ability to focus, your motivation to do almost anything.
Yes.
How do you manage that while you're on set, given that you don't have as much control over your day as you might have over your training or over your nutrition?
A very, very good question, and I think it's the thing that I'm challenged with the most is sleep. Is getting. I know all the facts and I know all the stuff, but I haven't taken control of that aspect as much as I have taken control of other aspects of nutrition and health. There's a couple supplements I take for nighttime. I take MagTech or some kind of magnesium 3 and 8 product. Sometimes L-theanine for relaxation. I use the Bulletproof Sleep Induction mat sometimes before sleep. I have filters and stuff on my phone so that I try to stay away from my phone before going to bed to help, with natural sleep.
Sounds like you got more dialed in than most people.
Yeah, but I struggle with the challenge is after you're working a 14-hour day, I want to go home and I want to relax. I want to turn on the TV and just like veg for a little while.
Yeah.
But sometimes I fall asleep on the couch because it's so relaxing and nice.
Sure.
You need a harder couch.
Well, then you got a wife and kid as well, right?
Right. Well, I'm in Vancouver, so sometimes they're up with me, but a lot of times they're in Los Angeles. I fly back every weekend,
Gotcha.
which presents issues.
That's more to do.
That. So, more than anything, I think the most important thing is just creating a schedule and sticking to it. As far as I need 7.5 hours of sleep to function best, at least. And then trying to stick to that and moving my sleep time earlier also is more beneficial sleep, because I think the hours of 10 to going to sleep between 10 and 12 is better for most people for good sleep. So falling in that window is challenging, because if I'm not working, I'm with my son or doing things throughout the day, and then with my son and doing night and all that kind of stuff, and then you want that time for yourself as well. To be your own person for a little bit, but you have to. I think the mind game is going, well, I know I will have a better day if I go to sleep now, even though I feel the pull and the desire to to watch one more show or do whatever it is and stay up. So that's the.
I would imagine after 14 hours of being a superhero that you're kind of wound up. So do you have a hard time winding back down before bed? And if so, what do you do to get turned down? Or
I'm very grateful. My body chemistry works pretty well for sleep. I've always
high five to that. I do too. I can go to sleep anytime, anywhere.
I've always fallen asleep pretty well.
Nice.
I don't necessarily need the other things for sleep. I just take it to help get a more restful sleep and get more out of my sleep. So as long I stay away from caffeine, I don't try not to have caffeine past 2 p.m. And so then I don't really have issues being too wound up at all, really. So I guess I am sometimes wound up and my brain wants to keep doing things. So I guess sometimes I do have, and maybe that is, I'm not accepting that I do have some challenge with it, which is why I don't go to sleep early enough, because my brain is still going, oh, I could do this, I could do that.
We got a therapy session set up for you after this. We can figure this out.
Therapy's not a problem.
Where can people find more about what you're doing, what you're up to?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram, Brandon J. Routh. Twitter, same thing. Facebook, I think the same thing. I don't have a personal website, but that's usually, if anything interesting is happening in my life, I'm there. I don't do much when the show's not on, because it's mostly personal time and family time. But as the show's starting up again, I'll be doing a little more Instagram anyway, for sure. And we start Legends in July, and it'll be out probably October. Our third season. You can find us on Netflix if you haven't seen the show. It's fun, silly, superhero stuff, and yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon.
And at home, make sure you go subscribe on YouTube and head over to iTunes. Give us a 5-star review and a positive comment. Nothing less. Thanks. Later.